Hey everyone, welcome back to English Inside Out. I'm Mark. So, today's title might sound a little dramatic, but I think a lot of people need to hear it. You're not bad at English. And I want to say that slowly, because I know someone listening right now has said the opposite about themselves. Like, out loud, probably this week. I'm so bad at English. My English is terrible. I can't speak, and I get it. I've heard it from friends, students, co-workers, even people who are actually pretty good.
Hi everyone, I'm Anna, and yes, this episode is for anyone who feels that little wave of stress the moment they have to speak English. Like when you're about to order something, and you rehearse the sentence in your head first. Not because it's hard, but because you don't want to mess it up. Or when someone says, "So where are you from?" and your brain suddenly forgets every word you've ever learned. And later you think, why did I sound like that? I'm so bad at English. But you're not.
This came up for me in the most normal way. I was at a coffee shop the other day, just standing in line, and I overheard someone speaking English. They were doing fine. Like genuinely fine. They were communicating, the barista understood them. Everything was normal. But then they stepped aside and said to their friend, "Ugh, my English is awful." And I remember thinking, wait, what? You just successfully ordered coffee. You just did the thing. And it hit me. A lot of people don't judge their English by communication. They judge it by perfection.
Yes, people think good at English means sounding like a native speaker, like no pauses, perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, the exact right words every time. And real life is not like that. Even native speakers pause. They forget words. They say things like, what's the word, all the time. But when you're a learner, you interpret normal language moments as proof that you're failing. You make one small mistake and your brain goes, see, you're bad at English.
So today we're going to talk about why you feel bad at English, even when you're not, and what's actually happening in your brain in those moments. Because this isn't just about vocabulary. It's about confidence. It's about pressure. It's about the way you measure yourself.
Okay, let's talk about real life for a second. Because most people don't feel bad at English while studying grammar. They feel bad at English in normal, random, everyday situations. Like sending a voice message. You record it, you listen to it, you cringe, you delete it. You record again. And suddenly, what was supposed to be a 10-second message turns into a 5-minute production. Not because you don't know the words, but because you don't like how you sound.
Yes? Or group conversations. That's a big one. You're with 3 or 4 people speaking English, and you can understand maybe 80% of what's happening. You're following the topic. You're engaged. But by the time you organize your sentence in your head, the conversation has already moved on. So you stay quiet. And later you think, see, I can't speak. I'm bad at English. But the truth is, group conversations move fast, even for native speakers. Timing is a skill. Confidence is a skill. Jumping in is a skill. That's not the same thing as being bad.
Or phone calls. Phone calls are brutal. No body language, no facial expressions, just sound. Suddenly, everything feels harder. You can't read the other person's reaction. So you start doubting every sentence. Did they understand me? Was that clear? Did I say that wrong? And that tiny uncertainty makes your brain panic. And when your brain panics, your English drops, not because you don't know it, but because anxiety interferes with access.
Airports are another perfect example. You've probably imagined this scenario. You get to immigration, the officer asks a simple question, and your brain just freezes. You know the answer. It's basic. But pressure changes everything. It's like your vocabulary hides from you at the worst possible moment. And then afterward, when you're calm again, you replay it and think, why couldn't I speak normally? Because you were stressed, not because you're incapable.
And can we talk about laughing at jokes? That moment when everyone laughs and you're still processing the sentence? You smile a second late. And suddenly you think, I don't belong here. My English isn't good enough. But humor depends on cultural references, speed, tone, even native speakers miss jokes sometimes, yet you interpret it as a personal failure.
And here's the pattern I see in all of this. You measure your English at its most stressful moments. Not when you're calm, not when you're texting, not when you're watching something and understanding most of it. You judge yourself at your worst performance and call that your level. That's like judging your driving skills based on the one time you stalled the car in traffic.
Exactly, you're not bad at English. You're human in high-pressure situations. And pressure amplifies
So maybe the problem isn't your English. Maybe it's how you're evaluating it. Okay, so let's separate two things that people mix up all the time: low skill and low confidence. Because they feel the same when you're in the moment. You hesitate, you pause, you struggle to find a word, and your brain immediately labels it. I'm bad at English. But hesitation doesn't automatically mean lack of skill. Sometimes it means lack of confidence. And those are very different problems.
Yes, low skill means you genuinely don't know something. You don't know the word. You don't know the structure. You've never learned that expression. That's normal. That's fixable. That's just part of learning. But low confidence is different. Low confidence is when you do know the word, but you doubt it. You know, the grammar. But you second guess it. You form the sentence correctly. And then you think, wait, is that wrong? And you stop yourself. That's not a knowledge problem. That's a trust problem.
That trust issue shows up in really small ways. Like when you're typing a message and you think, I'm pretty sure this is right. And instead of sending it, you go check a translator. And the translator confirms, you were right. But you didn't trust yourself. If that happens occasionally, fine. But if it happens constantly, your brain starts believing, I can't rely on my English. Even when you can.
And here's something interesting. People with low skill usually ask more questions. They're curious. They're aware they don't know something. But people with low confidence often stay quiet because they assume they're wrong, even when they're not. So they don't test their knowledge, they don't experiment, they don't speak enough to gather evidence that they're capable, and that silence reinforces the insecurity.
I've seen this so many times. Someone says, my English is terrible. But then we talk for 20 minutes. In English. They tell stories. They explain ideas. They express opinions. Are there mistakes? Of course. But communication is happening. That's not low skill. That's someone with functional English and fragile confidence.
And confidence doesn't grow from studying more rules. It grows from surviving small risks. From speaking and realizing, oh, that worked. They understood me. The world didn't collapse. Confidence grows from evidence. But if you never act because you're afraid of making a mistake, you never collect that evidence.
So maybe the real question is, are you actually bad at English? Or are you just uncomfortable being imperfect in public? Because those are two completely different things.
And if it's confidence, that's good news. Because confidence is trainable. Can we talk about the way you speak to yourself for a second? Because I've noticed something. People don't just struggle with English, they attack themselves over it. I'm so bad. My English is terrible. I sound stupid. And they say it casually, like it's a fact. But imagine saying that to a friend. Imagine your friend speaks for 2 minutes in English, makes a few small mistakes, and then says, wow, I'm so bad. You would never agree with them. You'd say, what are you talking about? You're communicating. It's fine. But when it's you, the standard changes.
Yeah. And the words you use matter more than you think. When you constantly label yourself as bad, your brain starts looking for proof. You forget the moments when you understood a podcast. You ignore the times someone responded to you easily. You minimize the conversations that went well. And you zoom in on the one awkward pause, the one mispronounced word, the one time you couldn't remember something. And you build your entire identity around that tiny moment.
And here's something that might feel uncomfortable to hear. Calling yourself bad is sometimes easier than being patient. Because if you're bad, then that's your identity. It's fixed. But if you're learning, then you have to tolerate growth. And growth feels uncertain. Saying I'm bad at English sounds final. Saying I'm improving requires patience. And patience is hard.
Also, think about how long you've been exposed to English compared to your native language. You've probably spent decades speaking your first language every single day. And then you expect yourself to sound just as fluid in a language you've practiced for a few years, maybe a few hours a week. That comparison isn't fair. It's unrealistic.
And the truth is, most people who say they're bad at English are actually uncomfortable being seen trying, because when you speak a second language, you feel more vulnerable. You sound simpler than you are. You express less nuance than you can in your native language. And that gap feels frustrating. But that doesn't mean you're bad. It means you're in transition.
So maybe it's time to change the sentence. Not, I'm bad at English. Maybe, I'm building fluency. I'm getting more comfortable. I'm practicing. I'm not there yet. Not there yet is very different from bad. One is temporary. The other feels permanent.
You're not bad at English. You're brave enough to use it. And that already puts you ahead of everyone who never tries.
You know, I think one of the bravest things someone can do is speak a language that isn't their own. Because when you do that, you accept something uncomfortable. You accept that you won't sound as smart as you are. You accept that you won't express every idea perfectly. You accept that sometimes you'll search for words that feel so easy in your native language. That's not weakness. That's courage.
And I think a lot of people forget that. They compare their English to native speakers. Instead of comparing it to who they were a year ago, they focus on what's missing. Instead of noticing what's already working, you can order food, you can watch videos, you can understand conversations, you can explain your thoughts, maybe not perfectly, but clearly enough. That's not bad. That's progress.
And progress is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like fewer pauses. Sometimes it looks like understanding a joke faster. Sometimes it looks like sending a message without checking it 3 times. Small things. But small things add up.
So maybe this week, instead of saying I'm bad at English, try something different. Say, I'm learning. Say, I'm improving. Say, I'm building confidence. Because the way you talk to yourself shapes the way you show up.
You don't need perfect English to connect with people. You don't need flawless grammar to be understood. You just need willingness. And you already have that.
You're not bad at English. You're in the middle of becoming better. And that's exactly where you're supposed to be.
Thank you for spending this time with us today. If this episode resonated with you, send it to someone who needs to hear that they're doing better than they think.
And this week, speak a little more, even if it's imperfect. Especially if it's imperfect.